Episode 4 of the Triple Option, and you may see it's a little bit of a different camera angle today, and I am, it's because there's nobody sitting next to me. That's because my guest co-host of the day is my old friend Pierre Nugent, used to be here in Waco, but now he's at Fox 9 in Minneapolis, and he has braved many winters now, and I'm very proud of him for doing so. He's from Northern California originally, so I guess this was pretty extreme. Pierre, thanks for joining me. So happy to see you, buddy. I miss you terribly. I haven't seen you in like 3 or 4 years. I think since I was in Minneapolis.
For the Super Bowl. That was my first month here back in 2018. I first moved here. We had the Super Bowl, and you called me. You said, "Hey, I'm going to be there." I was like, "Well, fantastic. I actually know somebody like for once, like coming here." So yeah, no, it's been since, God, has it been that long?
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 5 years since I've seen you. Although I tell you, I would love to go back to Minneapolis again. It was a very fun city, but I will not be going back in February. I'm not doing that.
No, one of my favorite things since moving to Minnesota is telling Minnesotans that I would rather be stuck in the middle of the Arizona desert in July with no water than ever see a drop of snow again for the rest of my life. And they look at me like I have two heads, and it's fun. It's a fun game I like to play. So,
Pierre, when I was there, and it's so wild, and we're going to talk about Big Ten football in a second because you cover it. You do the PJ Fleck show each week on Fox 9 there. And so but when I was there, by about the 4th or 5th day, like I would be in a restaurant, or I would, like, we were doing the show in the Mall of America, and I'd like walk in to get like a smoothie or something. And I would have these moments where I just wanted to ask the person, like, there's other places to live, right? You've seen TV where there's like sunshine and it's warm, like even this time of year. And by the end of the week, I was ready, like standing in line in the security line to get into that game. I knew what true pain and sadness were because it was so cold. I couldn't feel my face because I don't own a scarf because I live here. And I was it was awful. Awful.
Yeah. No, and you're not the only one. I remember chit-chatting with Armando Salguero, who used to write for the Miami Herald, who now works over at Outkick. He covered the Dolphins for 30 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we were chit-chatting, and he said the exact same thing to me. He said, "How do people do this every day?" And I looked at him and said, I don't know. I have no idea. I've somehow managed to do it for 5.5 years. I still don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm alive, and I guess that's a good start.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so Pierre, one of the things that, of course, we talk about on our channel a lot because it's mostly what's dominated college football is realignment. You are there covering the Golden Gophers. They've been in a good spot. They haven't had to do anything and made more money, and all of a sudden they're going to be, welcoming teams in that they've never even thought would come into Minneapolis and play a game in USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, all coming in there. From Big Ten countries' perspective, how have you seen the realignment thing, unfolding in that, 2 years ago here it was panic times, and then all of a sudden everything's great because the Big 12 is gaining, but the Big Ten never really had to worry.
No, it never felt like they had to worry for a single minute. And as somebody like you mentioned, I'm originally from Northern California, so I'm used to Pac-10. Well, it was the Pac-10 at that time when I was living there. Now the Pac-12. I'm used to all the West Coast teams playing the West Coast teams. But now that USC, UCLA, like you said, Oregon, Washington, these trips that are going to be made to the West, it feels weird. I still have a little bit of a feeling like I'm dreaming, and this is kind of a weird dream, and it's all just going to go back to normal when I wake up. But yeah, that's an interesting quartet of teams that is going to be joining what is an already very competitive Big Ten conference in both divisions, more so in the East, obviously, since they have 3 teams ranked in the top 10 as of right now. So it really feels odd to me, but at the same time, too, I already told my bosses, I said, hey, when Minnesota plays UCLA and USC, you're putting me on the plane, right? I get to get out of here for a weekend and go to Southern California, don't I? So I'm going to hold them to that, whether they like it or not.
Here's what you should say. I speak California.
Correct.
I know the language.
I do.
I won't get freaked out by anything there.
Put a wetsuit on, give me a surfboard, I'm ready. I'll do a live shot from out on Santa Monica Pier. Who knows?
Yeah. By the way, is that not one of the weirdest places in the entire world?
Very strange.
It's very strange. Because you can walk down Santa Monica Pier and have a nice ice cream and a hot dog and ride a Ferris wheel and see kids running around. And then at the same time, you just see the craziest bum ever and just yelling out crazy things.
It is. You almost have to keep your head on a swivel to make sure that, nobody runs up to you really fast because God knows what could happen. And at the same time, too, you want to protect that ice cream cone because I don't want a seagull swooping in and stealing it or some crazy coming running around taking it out of my hand as well. So, yeah, you're right. You'll see some things down there.
Yeah. No, I was there. I went there the last time I was at Cowboys camp. It was 2019. On the day I had to leave, I had a really late flight and the Cowboys were off. So I just drove down Highway 1 there, and it's just an unbelievably beautiful drive. And so I drove right to the Santa Monica Pier. I park it, go up. I have lunch, and I was about by myself and really enjoying the view and the ocean. And there's, kids running around and people drawing caricatures. And then I just hear the CIA put a chip in my brain. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then you see that. And then the people from California are just oh yeah, that's just Carl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just it's almost part of the charm at this point. If you don't hear it now, it's like the 5:15 flyover. If you don't hear the planes somewhere, you're like, wait, did I miss something? It's almost like an alarm.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but getting back to it, there's got to be genuine excitement to see new things. And look, Minnesota. They've been, in the middle, for a long time. That's kind of where their light in life is. Now, I think that there's probably renewed optimism in the year since PJ Fleck has been there because he's maybe the first coach that they've had in a long time that the rest of the country knows who he is. So then people kind of pay attention, right? And but I would think that being part of this major conference would be one of the conferences now, the Power 2 essentially, would make them feel better about their long-term future and maybe kind of crawling out of the maw of the middle a little bit.
Yeah, and when the whole, emergence of USC and UCLA and Washington and Oregon came to be, my immediate thought was, how in the world, Minnesota already now has not played in a Big Ten championship game since, I don't know. I probably should have looked that up before I got on the show, but it's been that long to the point where I don't even know. But when all of that went down, my immediate thought truly was, boy, somebody explain to me a path where the University of Minnesota is going to try to make it out of the Big Ten West if it stays that way. Now, I know there's talk that there's not going to be any divisions anymore. I don't know if that's going to be really what's going to happen. When you have 18 teams, Paul, I don't know how you might not have two divisions, but that's not up for me to decide and have a Big Ten championship game. I know you probably just take the top two and call it your Big Ten championship game. But I as somebody who covers specifically the University of Minnesota, I think I don't see a pathway for them to reach a conference championship game. Perhaps, if we're really dreaming a college football playoff, unless maybe it expands and who knows what might happen one year with injury or you need a little luck sometimes to get to something like that. But I didn't love it for the University of Minnesota. I can tell you that. I said things just got an awfully lot harder for this university in a conference that was already hard to make your way through. And last year, I think it's fair to say that even though they went 8-4, they really missed an opportunity last year to play in the Big Ten championship game. The Big Ten West was wide open last year. It's wide open again this year, in all honesty, but last year, boy, they really had an opportunity to walk through that door and represent the Big Ten West, and they had a dud of a game against Purdue at home. That really hurt them in the long run. They still can't find a way to beat Iowa. That has been a thorn in their side since PJ Fleck has gotten here. So the pathway to glory for them in this conference, to me, has gotten – it was already hard to begin with. It's gotten a lot harder now.
Well, yeah, and look, now Luke Fickell's at Wisconsin. If you're just talking about the whole league, Luke Fickell's at Wisconsin, Lincoln Riley's coming in a year, Chip Kelly's coming in a year, Kalen DeBoer and Kenny Dillingham, not Kelly Dillingham, he's coming to the the Big 12, Dan Lanning, all coming from okay, great. Okay, maybe we don't have to play Iowa as much. Well, I guess that's the rivalry game. They'll keep that one. Maybe we don't play Ohio State as much. Oh, great. Now it's USC or Oregon or Washington. So, yeah, it gets, it doesn't get easier at all.
No, it really doesn't. And especially when this is a year, too, where you look at Minnesota's schedule, and PJ Fleck loves to call it the second most opportunistic schedule in the country. But, their non-conference is North Carolina. At North Carolina, they have Eastern Michigan at home. They have Louisiana at home. Eastern Michigan. I love how everybody here is talking about how they're just going to walk over Eastern Michigan on September 9th. And I said, I wouldn't say it that way just yet. Eastern Michigan is not a bad football program, and nothing is a gimme with what I've seen with Minnesota over the last handful of years. So let's pump the brakes on just automatically chalking up a W against Eastern Michigan. But then they have to go to Ohio State. They have Michigan at home this year. They have Michigan State at home. And then, like I just said, Iowa has constantly been a thorn in their side. You got to play Wisconsin, of course, again, like you do every year. This schedule this year for Minnesota is daunting, and I wish I could feel more bullish about it. I know some people in the community who think that Minnesota's somehow going to win 9 games, and I was like, boy, you're more optimistic than I am. That's 9 games would be, with this schedule, I think would be maybe PJ Fleck's best work ever since he's been here.
Yeah. Well, tonight, look, they open up the season tonight against Nebraska. Matt Rule's first game there. Of course, know him very, very well from his time here. And it's an interesting game to me because Matt Rule's going to want to play how PJ Fleck wants to play, which is physical, old school. Like, you're going to see as two guys trying to get as close to 1962 football as they possibly can tonight in that game. And we don't really know what Nebraska's going to be. Have no idea. Like that. It would not surprise me if they won this game or lost this game. This is, to me, in my mind, a total toss-up. Minnesota, I know they're replacing quarterbacks, and Mo Ibrahim is gone, and you've got a lot of dudes that are out the door that really helped build PJ Fleck to that 8-4 last year. So, how do you see this one shaking out tonight? And I guess you're leaving right from this to go there, right?
Yeah, I'm leaving my fancy apartment that I'm in right now. As you can see, I'm living large here in Minneapolis. Yeah. So I'm going to be leaving here to go straight to the stadium after we're done chit-chatting. But you mentioned it. It's going to be an interesting way to see, because PJ, over the last handful of years, you brought up one name. Mohamed Ibrahim was really the key that turned the engine for this team over the last few years. They didn't have him 1 year after he tore his Achilles in the season opener a couple of years ago, but he was just a bell cow that could be relied on week in and week out. And Tanner Morgan, their quarterback, was strong, steady, didn't wow you, wasn't really flashy, but was consistent enough to get the job done. And now it's going to look completely different, Paul, because Ethan Kaliakmanis steps in as the starting quarterback. And, he's got a great arm. People are very excited about his ceiling, in terms of, no disrespect to Tanner Morgan, but Ethan is a much more talented quarterback. PJ Fleck has alluded to the fact that his running back room and the way he's going to approach running the football this year is more of a running back by committee. So you don't really have that guy that you could turn around, hand the ball off to 25, 30 times a game like they did with Mo Ibrahim. It's a makeshift offensive line. John Michael Schmitz, who was an All-American center here, drafted in the second round by the New York Giants, he's gone. Nathan Bowe steps in as the starting center. Quinn Carroll, who was starting tackle, now slides over to guard. And PJ Fleck was asked about his offensive line. Is he planning to play the same 5 guys throughout the entire game tonight? And he said, he kind of gave us we'll see. He said, we might mix in a couple guys here and there. So I think that this is not going to be the same type of Minnesota offense that we've seen over the last few years with PJ. I think we're going to see them sling it a little bit more. But my concern is their offensive line and how they're going to protect Ethan Kaliakmanis with guys leaving the program and shifting around. I might not watch Ethan throw a pass tonight. I'm going to be watching directly in the trenches at that offensive line to see if they're able to block anybody.